Welcome back to the Qlik MCP Cordon Green Culinary School of Agenic Awesomeness. This is Chef Qlik Dork, and I hope that you're well rested and caffeinated up, all you little sous chefs out there. Sometimes in your restaurant, you might have diners walk in and they have allergies, and you certainly don't want to serve them foods that might harm them and, harm your liability situation. Maybe you have diners and they like your dishes, but they just want a little bit of less spice in there, and you want to honor those requests. Well, as always in this course, there are no microwaves here. We'll be putting our hearts into this dish. So let me begin with what I mean, because obviously you are not worried about preparing dishes for people that might have allergies or spices. It's really about asking questions. Asking questions of another human being is something we've done a million times. We can see whether they're paying attention or not when we ask, and depending on that, we know whether we should trust their answer or walk to the next cube or pick up the Zoom and call somebody else. If we see a weird look on their face, like they have doubts when they're giving us an answer, we know to ask another more probing question to make sure that they're either confident or they let us know, you know what, I'm really making this up. You should go ask somebody else. If they answer with something that doesn't even make sense, we suddenly realize we might have asked the wrong thing, and we simply say, hey, I know what I said, but that is not what I meant. Let me ask it this way instead. But what about when you're asking questions of Chef Claude? This is an agenic system here. He is going under the covers, kind of a black box thing here, to Qlik MCP. So when we ask questions about our data, how in the world do we know what's really going on? Well, in Course 200, I walked you through suggestions about the importance of being a Chief Question Officer. Part of that was relearning how to become a critical thinker. And that makes sense and is applicable in this course as well. In this course, Chef Qlik Dork is going to help you understand a very few important concepts about how Chef Claude actually interacts behind the scenes through Qlik MCP with your applications when he's going to present the dish that you asked him for. You're going to learn how Qlik MCP honors security and filters in your Qlik applications when Chef Claude talks to it. But perhaps as importantly, you're going to see situations where I had to ask more probing questions when things seemed a little bit sus with Chef Claude's answers. While it may seem that there is a simpler answer, you're going to uncover firsthand via the chat that I walk through that in fact there are other forces at work sometimes that you might not have considered. Now, I'm going to be the first to admit I forced the scenario through what we were trying to do so that I could prove the point. But I want you to try to figure out that sometimes when you're trying to find answers in the Cordon Green kitchen, I'm actually trying to help you prepare to be the head chef in your own restaurant. You know the old saying, sometimes you have to break a few eggs to make an omelet. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Let's get started. So you got that super easy question, right? You just want to know what the total sales are in this application. How hard could it be? There's a lot that you might just assume is going to happen. I want to give you a little bit of background here about this app. There are 100 records of sales. So we will in fact be able to get our total sales. If I look at the data model, this thing couldn't be much easier. A handful of fields, there's not a whole lot of guesswork that Claude would need to do. And if I look at my application, wow, look at that. I've got a KPI already on the screen for it. I want to show you how these things interact, because when you go to push this button, I want to make sure that you understand what's going on with Qlik MCP. It is actually going to fire up a session for you with your user ID that you're logged in as, just like you would have a session here. If you've ever watched any of our videos about embedding, you know that you can do the same thing in a split screen. I can make filter selections in the app. I see it in my embedded version on a web. If I ask for things in the web, I end up seeing those things happen. So let's go ahead and give a few of these things a try here. So I'm going to ask it that question, what's going on with my super simple app? Let me go find this. It's going to go find the application for me. Hey, it found it. Notice the logic that it goes through there, right? I asked it for total sales, and it was looking for a field called total sales because that's what I named it. Because in my record, I had a quantity, a price per item, and then I have this total sales field. Notice that it did get to the number, right? But I want you to understand there's logic, there's reasoning going on under the covers because it has to interpret your natural language the way you asked for it and convert that to what is in the data model. Well, I want to ask that question again. Only this time I'm going to filter this down to the north and the east, right? So now I'm in my application. I've made a filter selection, and I want you to understand that these things are really talking together. It is looking at your Qlik app as you. He tries to remember it from cache, and so I will need to say I've made some filter selections because I asked that exact same question and he's trying to save you some tokens. Notice now he's going to, oh, look, I do notice that you have north and east. And it comes back and gives me that number. Well, I shared in course 100 about setting skills. You can set a rule now because you realize, hey, I'm going to be asking you a lot of questions. I don't want you to use cache. And so I'm going to set that rule. Okay, so he is now going to remember that every time I ask from now on, I don't want him to use the cache. So let's go see if he'll do that. And I'm going to change to northeast and just Mega Gizmo. So I've made a couple of selections now. I'm going to ask him that same question. Notice he recognizes exactly what is going on there. So now I'm going to show you that this can work in reverse as well. I'm going to say, can you show me what the symbols are for Thunder widget? So I want him to give me the total sales just based on Thunder widget. I'm going to try to dig into this a little bit. Notice that it can do some incredible things. Even though I didn't filter them, he'll make the filter selections along the way. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say, hey, please select Mega Gizmo and South and tell me about them. Okay, so I'm asking him to make those for me. And you notice he will apply the filters. If I ask him to do the filters, he will filter, and you can see that right in the screen so that you would be able to validate some answers here. And look at that. Sure enough, I'm getting the exact same numbers. And you can see that when you're asking questions in Claude, it is literally talking to a session in Qlik just as if you were the ones pressing the button. I'm going to go ahead and clear these because I want to show you something else as well. I'm sure you're familiar with the idea of section access. Section access is security. So I'm going to say that me as Dalton Ruhr, not the Chef Qlik Dork, I'm only allowed to see the West. And so let me go ahead and reload this application with just the West. And I want to show you now, I'm still going to have that same table, but I only get 25 records. That is literally all that's there. And the only region that is there is the West, because that's how security works. Well, here's the beautiful thing, folks. When you're asking questions or your end users are asking questions in Claude and it's talking to Qlik MCP, it is going through that same security interface. You notice now that it is only showing me the number just like I was in the session. I can find out about it because it has me scared. Hey, that's not the same number. Hey, look, oh, you know what? You might have section access involved. There might be some set analysis in the master measure, blah, 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 blah. Those are good tips. What do you see in my application? How about that? It gave me some ideas of what it could be. I'm not happy with it could be any of these 85 things. I wanted it to tell me, you know what? When I look at your app, this section access is true. It knows that I'm limited to just the West. So I could see the number that it had before in cache. If I never had asked in the session without running section access, then it would have never known about that 215 total. But if I say, hey, please show me sales for the East, I would expect it to do what hopefully it's going to do. It's going to say, I'm sorry, you're not allowed to see any of that data, and I'm not going to give you any totals. And so it's saying, hey, I confirm that you are not allowed to see the East because you don't have access to it. That's why your values are 0. So I want you to understand with this Qlik MCP, the same integrity and security and governance you would expect from end users using the apps that you've deployed is going to be honored by Qlik MCP, because it is literally almost like an embedding where it's doing the same things as a session. And if you have a dual window like this, you can see what it's doing there. Now get back in your kitchen and make something beautiful.